Hi, hello. So today I have for you another one of those kind of recommendations things. In my notes, this was titled Really Fucked Up Gay Books. I don't know if that is what we're gonna call it when I post it on YouTube, because maybe not. Um, Disclaimer, these are all Achillean. So if you have recommendations for really fucked up sapphic books, let me know, because I have none right here. And what I did was I did what I always do is I go around my shelves. They're in reverse alphabetical order, except for I have a big chunk of Dark Academia at the back because, I guess technically the front, because something about Dark Academia really kind of lends itself to really fucked up gay stuff. And I honestly almost entirely cleared out my Dark Academia shelf. So that's what I'm going to start with when I get into it. A couple of honorable mentions. Oh, there was something in my head, but it's gone now. We could. I had something as I was going along, but it's gone now. A lot of this does focus in on some. There's a good amount of horror in here, or a good amount of things that people consider horror in here. And as I go through some of these, there will be other books by the same author that I'll be mentioning. But that is that. We're starting with the Dark Academia, and I want to start with kind of the mother of all fucked up gay books, or the father, so to speak. Um, it's a classic. We've got a couple classics in here actually, but it's a classic in the truest sense. That's of course The Picture of Dorian Gray. I would give my left foot to read the. Well, I don't need to. I just need to give like $40 or something to get the edition that has like the stuff that was cut out and stuff like that, and like all the social commentary, historical commentary. This is just the standard edition. The Picture of Dorian Gray is a classic novel by Oscar Wilde about a young man who is enchanted by this other young man, like not literally, but like, like emotionally, and ends up following in his footsteps. But also, there was another young man who was using this original young man, Dorian Gray. I should use names if I'm just gonna keep saying young man over and over again. Um, Dorian Gray, who was using Dorian Gray as his muse and ended up painting a picture that would age and show the repercussions of Dorian's actions. In terms of this list, the picture of Dorian Gray is very tame. It really is. There's some real fucked up things going on, and really, I think it's just going to get worse as we go on because for some reason, the closer to the beginning of the alphabet we got, the worse things got for us here. So we got that. This next one we've got. I'm just gonna do that. Is These Violent Delights by Micah Neveremer. Never ever. I can never do that last name. These Violent Delights is a dark academia novel about this boy who ends up meeting and really falling head over heels for this other boy in one of his college courses, and they end up doing terrible things together. This is one of those ones that's kind of very clearly inspired by The Secret History. We've got a couple of them in here, but what Never Ever did, just as another one did, is they took the queer subtext in The Secret History and just cranked it up to be in the text. This could be because The Secret History was written in the 90s and published in the 90s, but either way, there's murder. It is what it is. This next one is one that I maybe only grabbed because I was grabbing a whole bunch of other stuff off the shelf. The darkness in this book has nothing, well, sort of does, has little to do with the queer stuff going on in the book. It's like there is some amount of internal kind of struggles that I think does add to the flavor of the book, but the real dark stuff in the book, this is a horror novel that happens to be queer. That's what this is. I just grabbed it because I was grabbing everything else on this fucking shelf, so I just did. And that's Summer Sons by Lee Mandel. Summer Sons follows a young man named Andrew who he was planning on going to grad school with basically his other half. They haven't ever really addressed the fact that they are the other's other half, but there's definitely something going on there. But unfortunately, his other half, Eddie, dies, and everybody thinks it's suicide. Andrew isn't quite so sure. This book is beautifully written. It really is so evocative. It's so visceral. It's great. All right, the last off that dark academia shelf. So this is like kind of like our taste tester. This is like our little like lightness. This is our lightly fucked up books here. If We Were Villains by ML Rio. Again, dark academia, very Shakespeare, very clearly inspired by The Secret History. Like, I read this book and I was like, that was really fun. Rio really liked The Secret History, huh? Like, that was like my first thought. But we follow this man Oliver as he's getting out of prison, and he is ready to finally tell what actually happened when one of his little Shakespearean troupe ended up dead years ago. Again, I kind of just grabbing everything on the Dark Academia shelf. All right, so if this is like our taste tester, this is like our preview. Now we're getting to things that are a little bit darker. And so this first one I've got, At Dark I Become Loathsome by Eric LaRocca. Eric LaRocca, I think, is a very prominent figure in the horror community right now. I think they've gotten a little bit, it's stepped back a bit from them. I read the green one. I don't remember the name of it, and it was fine. I read At Dark I Become Loathsome, and I loved it. The darkness in this book, and the fucked up thing about this book, is how in the head of the main character you are and how messed up he is. He is trying to feel something, and he is only getting that by killing people, and he feels like he's doing them a service. It's very good. I think this book was a little divisive when it came out, but I really enjoyed it. And I did not like the green one, so. All right, this next one. This one I think is very popular, mostly for the movie, and I do have the movie cover. This is one of those ones where you see clips of the movie and people are like, I'm never gonna recover from this. I'm like, read the fucking book, man, it's worse. That's Mysterious Skin by Scott Heim. I've read everything by Scott Heim, or Scott Haim, I don't know. Probably Haim. I think Heim sounds better, so I'm gonna keep saying that. I've read everything by him. This is by far his best book. The other ones are pretty good too. I'm not gonna lie. I think the other ones are pretty good books and they are definitely disturbing, but this book is something else. Mysterious Skin follows these two young men kind of as they're teenagers and growing up, like young teenagers, Brian and Neil. And Brian is convinced that when he was 8, he was abducted by aliens because something happened to him when he was 8. He doesn't remember. All he remembers is waking up under his house and his nose was bleeding. Neil knows what happens to him, and he ends up becoming basically like a hustler. And it follows them growing up and how this really damaged them in a lot of ways, and it's very good. All right. Next up. I could not do this without talking about Brady Snellis. And I could have pulled out Glamorama and talked about Victor's latent bisexuality that is only further suppressed by his father's overbearingness. But I figured I'd do one that's more overt, so I do have The Shards here. The Shards is an example of autofiction. It is a kind of a faux autobiography of Brady Snellis as a senior in high school, where there's a serial killer running around. And it reads as a really exploration of how Ellis ended up the way he did. And it reads as a explanation of what it was like to be gay in the 80s, even in a place like California, which was supposedly kind of a little bit more free love, but there's so much self-hatred in here. This is fucked up because it's Brady Snellis. That's why this is fucked up. And it's maybe not quite as fucked up as Glamorama in places. Glamorama is my favorite book of all time, but there are scenes in this that are just like, oof, man, like this is something. This is a little bit of a side note. I also wrote a fucked up gay book. It's called Guillaume, and it's inspired by Lord of the Flies. So there's that one. And now this is kind of like the mother of the Motherlode. I already called the picture of Dorian Gray the mother, but this is the cream of the crop here. First up, the book that inspired this entire video is The Sluts by Dennis Cooper. The Sluts follows this like message board for young, mostly young, I suppose, male escorts, and we follow what is going on with this kid named Brian, and we don't know if Brian is his name Brian? It's Brad. I'm sorry. Brian's from Mysterious Skin. This kid Brad. And it's like, is Brian real? Is Brian as messed up as people say he is? What's going on with this? Is Brian a victim? Is Brian the one who's creating victims? What's happening? It's really messed up and it's really disturbing to read. And I read this and I was thinking about it for hours afterwards. I read this mostly in one sitting. It is a lot. It's definitely an interesting one. All right, if we want to talk about classics, and we don't talk about fucked up queer lit. We need to talk about Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs. I read this when I was a freshman in college. I tabbed up a lot of it, like not like tabs, but I just like underlined and then I marked where I'd underlined because I thought some of his turns of phrases were so interesting. This book, I need to reread it, I think, because I don't think I understood it as a freshman in college. I know I really liked it because again, some of these turns of phrases were just insane. I just loved how things were put. But absolutely this is a very, I mean, Burroughs was kind of the prototype. And finally, we need to talk about the book that ruined cannibal. I just spoiled it. It ruined cannibalism books for me forever. Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Z. Brite. This isn't my favorite book by Brite. I think Lost Souls just has my entire heart and soul. But it's not. Lost Souls isn't quite as fucked up as this one. Exquisite Corpse is basically Dennis Nilsen and Jeffrey Dahmer fanfiction. It follows these two serial killers who end up meeting up and they discover that they have a whole lot in common. And one thing that they have in common is they both really, really have a thing for this little, I think he's a Vietnamese, yes, Vietnamese American kid. Not a kid, he's like 20, 21, so he's young, but he's not like a child. Um, Vietnamese American youth who they both really want to like kill and hurt and all that fun stuff with. This book is so good. Like I said, it ruined cannibalism books for me forever. I cannot read a cannibalism book without comparing it to Exquisite Corpse. Poppy Z. Brite can write like nobody else. I mentioned Lost Souls. Lost Souls, I think, is my favorite book of the year because it was just phenomenal. This book, I know some people have been disappointed with the lack of serial killer interaction. They do have a lot of their own paths before meeting, but it is definitely has some stuff going on in here where you're like, holy shit. Guillaume was also partially inspired by Exquisite Corpse. So there's that. This is my list. Again, if you have recommendations, this is pretty male heavy by the fact that it's all men. If you have, not in being written, but in what's being written about, if you have recommendations for really fucked up sapphic books, you must let me know because I would like to explore there as well. But yeah, this is my list here. I would recommend all of these books. But again, lightest to a little darker to the darkest. Absolutely. Like, these are the lightest ones. These get a bit darker. These are the darkest. And it's funny how it worked out that way in reverse alphabetical order with my Dark Academia on the back. But yeah, that is everything. I will talk to you later. And goodbye.